So today we're with Chris, who works at LAKEY, and he has brought a very special piece of technology that I've just been oogling over for many, many years here. As you know, we like to recreate like digital environments in many ways. Sometimes we'll take like an HDR scan of an environment to project lighting and materials and reflections onto digital characters. Other times, like in anime self-driving cars, we'll like photo scan an entire environment with like a drone and stitch all the photos together and map it out to create a virtual environment. But Chris here has brought a special tool that can kind of do all that in one.
So this is the LAKEY BLK 360. It's a 3D scanner using LiDAR. It's also got HDR imagery capabilities. Typically used more in the construction space and capturing 3D scenes, but to a couple millimeter accuracy. But now we're starting to get into getting some traction in the visual effects industry, and that's why we kind of teamed up with you guys to try and check out some of those workflows. Yeah.
So our goal for today is to photo scan our studio and the loading dock and basically get a 3D model and a digital recreation of our entire workspace for their use. Wow. Yeah, it's gonna be pretty sweet. So here's the interesting bit here. All right, where did I put that camera down? Here. All right. Previously, when we film a video, like Boston Dynamics, for example, when we have to render out our 3D models of characters, we'll use something like an Insta360 camera here, because basically we can take multiple photos of an environment and create an HDR image. And that HDR image allows us to relight the environment and basically tell our 3D models where the light sources are, and it also adds realistic reflections for that real world environment. So the whole Boston Dynamics videos, you can watch this. Every single shot of the robot there is using an HDR map that we took during that shot on set. And that's what helps those robots just blend in so well with the environment. But, what's the big difference though between using this and that? Because they're both 360, sure. We'll both get like 360 images from it. Sure. But what is the main difference with this and that?
I mean, the big difference is they're actually using LiDAR. So we're actually using a laser to collect measured points to create a 3D model, actually, a 3D point cloud.
So how does LiDAR work?
So LiDAR is using a laser from the inside, as you can see here. The laser's on the inside and it hits this mirror, this 45-degree angle mirror. Then that mirror spins and it shoots out a laser point, and using time of flight technology, it's bouncing back and takes a measured data point. And so the data itself is actually scaled. But because of that, as this rotates, then this whole thing spins. You've got a single laser beam kind of going like this, and then it rotates 180 degrees, but then you're collecting full 360 because you're capturing that slice all at once.
Gotcha. So that makes it so it can reconstruct the space in 3 dimensions instead of just 2.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. Is there a camera on this as well then somewhere?
So yeah, there actually is. There's 3 cameras right here. So as it goes around, it's first stage it goes around, each one takes a snapshot. If you got the HDR turned on, it's 3 stage, so each one will fire off at 3 different lighting settings, and then as that goes around, it does 10 stops. So you essentially end up with 30 photos that are stitched together into one like total of 150 megapixel image.
Okay. Yeah. So I noticed that the spinning laser, it's kind of interesting because I'm familiar with like the Vive trackers, like the lighthouses. Sure. And I know they use a similar system, and when you see those little like boxes up on the walls, they actually have a similar system as far as having a spinning synchronized laser that helps detect like the IR signals from the actual Vive headset. Oh, sure. So it's actually kind of like a similar mechanism, but for different uses.
Yeah, definitely.
How big of a space can this thing scan? Could it do the whole, could it get all the way back there?
Yeah, actually, so from a single location, when it shoots out, it's got a maximum range of 60 meters, so about 200 feet. So that's in full 360. Essentially, the only kind of blind spot is pretty much the footprint of the actual tripod right here. But anyway, just because that's just from one location, but as you do multiple setups, you go along, and as long as you have it set up so that there's overlapping data, you can register those together. So you could do entire building and go from room to room. Doesn't matter. There's really no limit on that.
Yeah. So that's what we're going to do today, then, right?
Yeah. So yeah, today we're going to go space to space here and scan our studio. And then next time we have to film anything here, or maybe even use this 3D model we've created, we have it right here on hand. Okay, so here in our loading dock, I can give you guys the best example of why this technology is really special to us. When we filmed our Boston Dynamics video, in order to get that robot looking like it's naturally in the scene, we would take our Insta360 cameras and we would scan a 360 HDR of this environment. And that image basically allows us to separate the bright points from the dark points and basically light our scene. So if you look around here, you can see there's like some lights there, we got some lights up here, you know, and it basically, yeah, it's able to tell us where our light sources are coming from. However, there was one small issue that led us to have to basically redo that lighting. And here's kind of how that works. So, when you scan a 360 HDR of an environment, you're basically getting a giant sphere. That's what your image ends up looking like. You get a sphere that surrounds your environment. The problem though is that sphere, it's not in 3 dimensions here, it's in 2. Imagine I'm inside a sphere here of light, but the problem is that when you scan it in 2 dimensions, that light sphere has to kind of move with you because it's at an infinite distance. It doesn't actually move with your scene or anything like that. So when you have an issue like this, where you have a scene that has a single top light, when you scan your HDR, whenever the character is standing directly beneath the light, it's going to look completely natural. But suddenly, if the character steps in 3D space away from it, that 360 HDR, it's not going to move away. It's going to stick with your scene. So when it came time to render that video and light it and do all that stuff, we had to basically go through and in 3 dimensions put light sources back where they were. So that made it so we couldn't like actually rely on just our image map to recreate the scene. However, when you start using this and you have the LiDAR that actually scans your environment in 3 dimensions, you can feasibly have a fully functioning 3D lighting environment that allows any characters to walk around in it and have the light sources react appropriately. It's a long-winded explanation, but I feel like that's as concise as I can possibly make it. But for real. So yeah, basically it makes it so your lights stick where they need to be. So you know what, let's try a scan here.
Yeah.
Are we gonna have to like run and hide?
Well, yeah, so if you want to get your best, cleanest stuff, you have 2 options. Yeah, you can run and hide behind something, or you can do the little BLK 360 dance. As this rotates, you can kind of
Can we just like get up? Can we get against the wall and just like be?
No, because it's gonna go past us and scan us. I mean, we'll be permanently set in stone in that scene forever.
I'll go over there in the jump.
And if you want to just scan with us around it,
you can Easter egg it.
We can always just, yeah.
Or if you want, you can do the dance and step behind it as it spins. And
Fix it in post.
Yeah.
So all I have to do is just stay behind the camera then.
So like the safest spot is if you're looking at the Leica sign,
Okay. I'll try to stay there.
So we do have, a few different settings if you want on here. We can do, low res, medium res, high res. So that's just a number of actual points you're taking. Then you can change the imagery to be LDR or HDR. So, the longer, the higher resolution the actual point cloud is, the longer it takes. So it can range anywhere from, a 40-second scan all the way up to about 6-minute scan, depending on the settings you use. But yeah.
Well, what are we gonna do today?
It would be great to do like the HDR scan because I'm okay with the extra data because we can definitely use it.
Sure.
So how long does that take scanning wise then?
So scanning, if we did medium resolution point cloud, which is typically you're probably putting around about 15 million points, and then the HDR turned on, it'll take about 4 minutes.
All right.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right, so I guess we'll go.
By the way, the musician upstairs is playing some extra like technology-driven music right now, so it's perfect.
Driven music inspired by technology.
Inspired by technology.
All right.
I guess I'll see you guys on the other side.
See you guys in 420.
Yeah, right.
Oh, the guys are gonna come in.
Don't open the door!
Don't open the door!
Don't open the door!
gonna be done in 3 minutes. Just chill.
A few minutes later.
All clear. All clear.
Stone Age triangle music.
So loading dock's done. We're gonna start our. We're gonna chart our course from the loading dock back into the studio.
I saw this one company overseas a few years ago where they were testing it out for, they did models, they shot models, like literally people. And I saw they were doing some funky stuff where they purposely had the models like moving with the scanner. So they would, in the end, like talk about some janky things. You can see a long person, but in 3D then, so the same as a panorama.
A 3D squish.
A 3D squish.
Oh man.
You can squish or elongate, whatever you want to do.
That'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah, pretty good.
The scans work?
This will be obviously a much denser point cloud once we're done, but it's just
Sure.
like
I mean,
about,
it already looks super great.
yeah,
Easy.
about a 1% preview of what the total point cloud will look like. It's kind of auto adjusting.
Is this the first one you guys have done?
We just did a couple out there, but otherwise, I took some scans in here earlier. I can show you that, but we're currently taking a scan out there, so I gotta stay on this project while I'm doing that.
Yeah.
How long does it take?
So each scan can range anywhere from like 40 seconds to 6 minutes or so.
Okay.
But yeah,
Can it shoot? Can it shoot HDRIs?
so yeah, it does HDR, but yeah,
Yeah.
just 3-stage HDR.
Yeah. So
Does the texture
it does,
color
but
too.
we're still figuring out like how to best extract that though. You know. Because like you're showing me like in the app when you look at lights, it'll do a little bit of that
yeah.
auto adjustment.
Can't show you.
So like the file and the image data is there. So you look up and you see it like.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So the main thing is like how do you extract that? Because like we're talking about like Boston
Crazy,
Dynamics
man.
of like
That is-
rather than doing the.
That's all 3D.
Yeah, so this is the actual photo 360 view. So looking directly from the point of the scanner, you see since we turn the HDR on, it will auto adjust. It does have the thermal imaging actually as well. Just in the one view, it's like a 70-degree point of view, so you can see it's not all the way 360, but it is still the only LiDAR scanner on the market with any sort of thermal capabilities.
How much does this camera run?
So this one is just the unit itself is like 18,500. But yeah, kind of all in for anything you'd need to get started is like 20 grand.
Yeah.
So the scan's done. How many scans was that? Like we went through the loading dock, through the hallway, studio, and a couple of the cool rooms here.
Yeah, so we did about 13, 14 scans.
Oh my gosh. All right. So
Yeah.
how are we gonna put? Okay. So how are we gonna put all this data together?
Sure. So yeah, in the process, we kind of usually say registration, alignment, stitching together. When I say any of those, I mean all the same thing. It's all these scans really don't know where they are in 3D space, so it all comes to overlapping data. So every time we set it up, we make sure there's overlapping data between those, and then essentially like putting a puzzle together. We just have to pretty much help it out a little bit. So here's an example of a top-down view of the scans we've taken. These chunks, this chunk over here is one bundle that's all been together, and I've got two other scans that have not been registered yet. So all I have to do, I know this was over in front of the airsoft stuff, so if I just hit this link, press this scan right here, we've now got this top down just between these two, and we'll hit optimize and just see it snaps them together. We hit create link. So we'll do that one more time with this scan over here, just get it close to where it should be, say hey, register with that one, hit optimize, and it snaps it together.
Oh my god.
Create link.
That's so stupidly easy looking.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Because like each one of these files though is like super dense. There's like millions of points. like they have to be huge file sizes. How the heck does this like work so quickly to align that stuff?
So what we're seeing here, this isn't fully processed data yet. It's just a low res kind of preview image. So the raw data, you know, it's sitting on the BLK, then it transfers it over and just kind of initially does a process to it, because to fully process it, it can't quite handle it all on the iPad Pro. So once I dump this off onto the laptop, we'll finish processing, and then that's when it'll like fully essentially unzip all the real data. So this is just previewed stuff.
That's super cool.
Yeah,
like
then
because honestly, like of all the scans we've done though, like piecing multiple scans together is by far the most difficult thing I've ever tried to do, because like even if you're like we have a flat area and sometimes like it seems like you can connect them, the seams between the two like segments, chunks, whatever you want to call them, aren't even. So you have to kind of go through manually and like almost like polygon by polygon, like just connect every little tiny point. And there's millions of them, so it can be really lengthy.
For sure.
So like a good example though is also like when we were doing that anime self-driving cars video.
Yeah.
When we did our full road scan, we needed a longer road than the actual piece we scanned. So I ended up just duplicating it and aligning it, but the problem is that the road texture was pretty good.
Yeah.
But that we got from the scan, but the seams kind of killed the whole thing, which led us to basically just making our own road over the whole thing and just calling it a day. So it's simpler. So there were still seams all over the place in the video, but they're flying by so fast you can't see it.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
I wish there was like something like this when we were doing that.
Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely a little bit different, you know, with those when it is already a mesh. This is because this is in a point cloud format right now too. It kind of meshes, well, shouldn't use meshing, but you know, it comes together a little bit more seamless.
That's cool.
So again, now it's just the point cloud, and then depending on, you know, what you want to use it afterwards, I mean, you can do things like mesh this data and texture it, or like I said, using it for reference and the HDR stuff. So that's exciting to explore all those options.
So what's the next step with this? Do we know, or like the processing?
Yeah, I mean, for us, like us next steps, like for what we're trying to get to is like we're trying to get to having a full version of this model that we can use for upcoming videos, and potentially even to, you know, use as a virtual tour for anyone who wants to see what our studio is like. So how do we get there? Because this is a lot of data. This is a lot of data. Look at this. Like, this is crazy.
So again, this is just kind of like, low res preview of the data. This will be a lot more solid, but also kind of like a little X-ray view
so
kind
fun
of thing.
To just like
float around and see.
Once again, I keep bringing up this Boston Dynamics video because the whole process we went through for this video is like the complicated version of what we just did, of like having to rebuild the environment and measure everything and project textures out. And for us though, like it's funny because when we're doing it, we're saying, you know, screw it. These are all right angles. We're not measuring angles of anything. We're just assuming that everything is nice and straight. And so throughout the whole process, we're noticing inconsistencies all over the place, and we're just like, maybe we just suck and can't figure this out. But like, no, it's like things are just slightly off in real life.
Yeah, just like when they try to recreate, if you recreate the Darth Vader helmet perfectly symmetrical, people are like, that doesn't look quite right. You know, because that original helmet was handmade and there's inconsistencies, and so it's like, that can't happen if you try and recreate something too perfectly.
That's crazy.
Pick a point, tap the screen, and then find a point. Just
you can just measure it. Oh my god, that's so cool.
And you can change it obviously in units and stuff, but anything you can see on here, you can just pull a measurement on. You can zoom in on it. Yeah, exactly. And that's, like I said, that's what it's kind of made for, but so many other applications you can.
I just like how it's accurate. Like that idea of accuracy and like bringing a lot of the guesswork out of it is so cool.
Absolutely. And then if you really wanted to,
sorry, this is just like the highest tech looking interface. Right? When you go to the map in the point cloud view, that overhead view,
like that sci-fi.
That's like, it's like every video game you've ever played. It's like, this is what you're looking at, you know?
And then like the 3D version's like some like Ocean's 11 shit. Like we're like, all right, you got the maps of the place. You know,
when they're flying through, we gotta go through the elevator shaft and then break into the vault.
That's sweet.
Amazing.
But
awesome. Well, I guess, so we have to process this data first before we mess with it, because it's just a preview. And then after that we get to figure out how we want to play with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Next steps to come.
Sweet.
Awesome. Well, cool, guys.
Yeah,
Appreciate
well,
it.
yeah, man. Thank you so much for coming by, making the time to come out here.
Yeah.
I know you have a packed schedule showing. Everyone wants to see this.
Yeah, right.
So I'm really glad we got to do this, and hopefully we can get this out to you guys, so that way you can take a look and see what our studio's like without having to fly out here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The most convenient
Or work
thing.
here.
Or work here. Yeah.
Well, sweet. Appreciate it.
Cool, man.
Sweet.